Hello traders, welcome to the Nexoel Trading Hub YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to have a quick review on last week's Forex forecast and how it's played out. To stay updated with our weekly Forex forecast and our weekly review, you can do well to subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the free Telegram community where we draw charts, setups, and markups for the Forex forecast being made available in the YouTube channel. So guys, this is actually the dollar index, the monthly time frame. If you guys can vividly remember, in the weekly review video, I made it known to us that we are expecting to see price drop to the downside to sweep this candle's low point, and then we want to have mitigation of this monthly candle week actually at the 25% before we see any form of rejection to the upside. Why? Because you can see that this mitigation of this week by this candle isn't up to the 25% of this candle week. So my anticipation is to see that price further drops down and consider this candle low point as a sell side liquidity, also this candle low point as a sell side liquidity, where then we should anticipate to see mitigation of the 25% of this monthly candle week before we experience a rejection to the upside. And then when we actually dropped to the 4-hour time frame, we actually saw an inversion fair value gap at this particular price zone. So we expected to see rejection at the 25% of the monthly zone, or we want to see rejection at this 4-hour inversion fair value gap. And then we see price close for the week with a bullish market movement to the upside after sweeping the previous month's low points. So guys, let's drop to the weekly time frame. So this is actually the dollar index. Now we can see here from the dollar index, if you can remember from last week forecast and review, we spoke about this particular weekly inversion fair value gap, how price mitigated the weekly inversion fair value gap. And then you can see that this was where price closed. Price did not sweep the sell side liquidity. So we actually anticipated to see price further push to the downside to sweep this sell side liquidity and also to take out the low of last week's bearish candle movements to the downside. You can see we have bearish momentum to the downside. So we expected further bearish move to the downside to come mitigate this fair value gap we are actually seeing in the weekly time frame. And now you can see from the weekly time frame, we actually have this last sell candle before we have this buy move to the upside. So we expected to see further push of price to the downside into this bearish candle, this down close candle, and then price should further fall to mitigate this fair value gap resting here within the weekly time frame. And as you can see that the 25% of the monthly candle week, which we marked from the monthly time frame, you can see we are having a confidence of it to be approximately the same as the 50% level for this particular fair value gap we are actually seeing in the weekly time frame. And now you can see how price fell to the downside, mitigated the 25% of the monthly candle, and then you can see price closed above. We have a bullish move that's close priced for the week. We have that 4-hour inversion fair value gap. Price didn't really return to it. As you can see the indication here, I was expecting two zones or two levels to actually look out for the bullish rejection, which is actually the 25% of the monthly, which is actually the strong zone, or the 4-hour inversion fair value gap. So guys, let's drop to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. If you guys can remember, I told us to anticipate a bullish move from this other block where we are seeing price giving us this reaction here. So I told us to anticipate, this was Friday's candle. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this was last week price movements here. And then we had this candle on Friday. So I told us to anticipate a buy move, but then we should be careful about the buy move because price may just sweep this relatively equal lows, which gives us a sell side liquidity before we could see that bullish move to the upside and then further push of price to the downside. But then we can see that price didn't really sweep the relatively equal lows on Monday. Price gave us a bullish move on Monday, Tuesday. What price did was to sweep Friday's low point, and then we have this bullish right to the upside, and then you can now see we have the fall of price to the downside to take out this sell side liquidity. Now you can see that the 25% level is actually in confluence to this order block, because you can see we have this down close candle that sponsored the bullish move to the upside, and then price return mitigated the 25% of the monthly candle, and then we have this bullish move to the upside. And now you can see that the order block is in confluence to the 25% level and also the inversion fair value gap level. So now price respected the monthly 25% level, and then we have the push up price to the upside. So you can see this was what played out last week. When we check the 4-hour time frame where we have a channel, so this is the 4-hour time frame. So I told us to expect price pushing to the upside to retest, and then we can see the fall of price to the downside. And then you can see that is what happened here. Price projected to the upside, retested the trend line, and then you can see price fell to the downside. So this was what happened last week in the dollar index. So we're going to check the other pairs, the GBPUSD, the EURUSD, and also the gold pair. So guys, let's head to the GBPUSD pair for our review for last week trade Forex focus. So this is a GBPUSD pair, and this is a monthly time frame. If you guys can remember last week Forex focus video, I told us to anticipate bullish right to the upside in the GBPUSD due to the bearish momentum we are going to actually see in the dollar index, which actually happened based on how we actually analyzed and forecasted. Now you can see here in the GBPUSD, though I told us that the anticipation of price to project to this monthly inversion fair value gap is actually a long-term projection to come sweep this buy side liquidity. So as we can see, price here reacting at the mean threshold of the monthly inversion fair value gap, resting here, and then we are seeing that price is still closing above the mean threshold. So we're anticipating to see the price sweeps this buy side liquidity, but that is actually a long-term projection. So now we can see that we actually had that bullish move to the upside, and then price still closed above the mean threshold. So let's check the weekly time frame. So here we are in the weekly time frame. Now in the weekly time frame, what we're going to see is that price is reacting at this order block zone here. Now price retested the order block zone, and then now you're having the second retest of price to the upside. Now what we experienced actually in the GBPUSD is that price did not really give us this momentum movements to the upside to come sweep this buy side liquidity. So what I saw was that price was facing this rejection here. We have this resistance level here. So we have this resistance because you can see we have a channel here. We have this channel here. So what you can see is in confluence to this order block zone here. So you can see price gave a very strong resistance here. So price could not push to the upside the way we anticipated to see price come sweep this buy side liquidity, because we have this order block. You can see this is valid because you have this fair value gap. You can see price return retested it, and then now you can now see price return again the second time, and then price is facing rejection here. Now you can see price face resistance because price, you can see this is resistance, price broke, return, retested, price mitigated this order block, or we can consider this as the order flow zone. And then price dropped to the downside, price return, resistance, return, retest, return. Now price face resistance. So price could not really push to the upside to break through this channel and also through this order block to take out this buy side liquidity and mitigate this monthly fair value gap. So that is what happened in the GBPUSD. We didn't really experience that bullish move we were actually anticipating in the GBPUSD pair. So let's check the daily time frame. So now in the daily time frame, you can see the indication. I was anticipating to see price push to the upside into this monthly fair value gap, sweep this buy side liquidity. So what we are going to see is when we analyze the markets, this was actually Friday's candle. So we're expecting to see price pull back to mitigate the mean threshold, and then we see that projection to the upside. But I've shown us guys from the weekly time frame what happened, and then price could not really push. We had a strong level of supply here, and then you can see that price didn't really give the significant bullish move we anticipated. And then now we can see prices falling to the downside. If you guys want to stay updated further, then you should actually anticipate the weekly forecast that's going to be released on Sunday for the coming week trade projections. So guys, let's check out the 4-hour time frame if we can actually see or spot out anything else from the 4-hour time frame. So this is the 4-hour time frame. So you can neatly see that price retested it, drop. So we're actually anticipating to see price return, mitigate this level and push based on the 4-hour time frame, and then push to the upside. But then we can see we had the bullish move, but face very strong resistance, and now price is dropping. So this is all about the GBPUSD pair. So let's check out the EURUSD. So this is actually the EURUSD. So this is a monthly time frame. You know, I told us guys that we should anticipate to see price push further. First to sweep this buy side liquidity before this buy side liquidity, and then start experiencing rejection at this rejection block zone. So this is actually a long time projection. So we can still see that actually price pushed to the upside, swept this buy side liquidity. We're still having a up close candle week here based on the monthly. So let's drop to the weekly time frame. Now here we are in the weekly time frame. So you can see this was the first buy side liquidity I told us to anticipate price to sweep before we could actually anticipate that price will sweep the monthly buy side liquidity, and then we actually see price return to this other block zone, which is actually the rejection block from the monthly time frame, fill up this fair value gap, and then before we could start seeing price dropping to the downside. If we can remember from last week review and forecast, we spoke about this weekly inversion fair value gap. So if you really want to understand more about this weekly inversion fair value gap, then you can make reference to those videos, the weekly review, and then the weekly forecast for last week. So this was our projection to have this buy side liquidity sweep and then this buy side liquidity sweep to mitigate this zone before we are going to see push of price to the downside. But you can see this is actually more of a long-term projection. So you can see last week we actually had that bullish move to the upside that swept this, because this was what we had. We had this buy side liquidity resting here on the weekly time frame. So this was last week candle. So we anticipated the sweep of this buy side liquidity. Price swept it, and then now we can see that price closed below it. So we could possibly see price fall into the downside to come to this weekly inversion fair value gap, or to mitigate 25% or 50% of this week before we further see more push to the upside. I'm not actually giving us a forecast, I'm just giving us a review. The forecast video is going to be made available on Sunday. But this was what happened. Price swept our weekly buy side liquidity, as we can see from the chart. So we have the monthly buy side liquidity left, and then this other block on the fair value gap. So guys, let's drop to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. So you can see we have a clean sweep of that buy side liquidity, though we anticipated more push to come sweep this and mitigate this level. We can also see we have a fair value gap resting. Yeah. So what we can see is this was Friday's candle. So you can see Monday gave us the sweep of that high, and then we had a pullback, and then price pushed to the upside. You can see the indication of where I was anticipating to see more bullish move to the upside. So price swept that high, and then we are seeing price coming to the downside. So based on the daily time frame, we anticipated to see that price return into this other block here, for price to return to face rejection and then push to the upside. And then you can see that neatly happened here, and then price rejected to the upside. Now we're having a bearish move to the downside. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame. So here we are actually in the 4-hour time frame. So in the 4-hour time frame, we can see we had this 4-hour inversion fair value gap. So we expected to see price push back to mitigate this candle. This is actually an order block level based on the 1 hour time frame, and then you can see price return, mitigated it, and then push to the upside. Price really pushed to the upside to this buy side liquidity, though we anticipated price to sweep this buy side liquidity. So this was our first target, and then these are second target. So based on the first target, price now gave a bearish move to the downside. So let's check the 1 hour time frame. So you can see as the 1 hour time frame. So this was the order block that was considered for price to come, retest, and then push to the upside. This was what happened in the EURUSD pair. So let's check the last pair we actually made a focus of last week, which is actually the gold pair. So here's the gold pair, and this is actually the monthly time frame. So I told us to actually anticipate to see price takes out this buy side liquidity. So we're anticipating the buy side liquidity rate, and then the close of price to the downside. So guys, let's go to the weekly time frame. So this is the weekly time frame. So we actually saw price facing rejection at this rejection block zone here. So you can see this was last week candle, but then due to the momentum that we actually see in gold, or let me see, due to the direction of buyers, we established that gold is actually bullish. So we can actually be expecting bearish momentum movements, but then gold is bullish. So we should be very flexible with determining the bearish extent in which we actually trade gold. And then we can now see that what happened was we had that sweep of buy side liquidity happened last week. We can see price pushed to the outside, swept the buy side liquidity, and now price closed below. And you can see this was shared in the Telegram channel. This is actually to tell the subscribers about the direction we are to see gold trade to. So now let's go to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. So we actually saw this fair value gap. Now this is the weekly rejection block zone. You can see in the daily time frame we are having this order block, and then we have the fair value gap here. So you can see this is actually Friday's candle. So we expected more bullish move to take out this buy side liquidity. So we anticipated to see price push back before we get this movement to the upside. And as you can see, that was what happened. Price pull back, mitigated this week, and then gave us the bullish move to the upside to sweep this buy side liquidity. So among the pairs that we actually analyzed, and the forecast was made available in the YouTube channel, gold was actually the one that played out so neatly, and the EURUSD. The GBPUSD was kind of so poor in volatility. So now we can see price push to the upside, raided our buy side liquidity. Now we're seeing a bearish move to the downside. So we saw this daily fair value gap turn into an inversion fair value gap, because we saw this momentum candle, this bullish candle, no form of rejection, closed above the fair value gap. So we anticipated to see that price here pulls back again. Since Friday pulled back, mitigated the mean threshold, and then closed above the mean threshold. So we expected mitigation of this week, or price to return to retest the mean threshold and then project to the upside. As you can see, price neatly played out in gold. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. In the 4-hour time frame, we can see this was Friday's candle. This also was Friday's candle. And then we have Sunday candle opened here. So this is Sunday, and then you can see price drop to the downside to come mitigate this order block, and then you can see price push to the upside, because price have mitigated the mean threshold of this inversion fair value gap based on this 4-hour time frame. Then now we see price give us the bullish move we anticipated. Now price is bearish, so you can stay tuned to this YouTube channel as we bring to you the weekly forecast for the coming week on Sunday. And if you're new to this YouTube channel and wish to be staying updated with our contents, our forecasts, our other contents we release regarding the financial markets, then you can do well to subscribe to this YouTube channel like and share our videos. Also comment in the comment section on certain things you would want us to actually address as it relates to understanding price delivery, interpretation of market structure, and other related questions as it regards to the financial markets. So cheers guys, and God bless you.